Hi, today I'm going to explain a movie named Lucy, which is about a woman who accidentally caught in a dark deal, turns the tables on her captors and transforms into a merciless warrior evolved beyond human logic. The movie starts with a scene of a cell is shown being divided into several more cells. Then an ancient chimpanzee is seen sipping water from a lake. Life, according to Lucy, started billions of years ago, and she wonders what humans have done with it since. Lucy won't do anything for Richard without knowing what he needs her to bring, so he binds her wrist to the suitcase handle, giving her no other option. When she reaches the lobby, she hesitantly introduces herself to the clerk before informing her that Richard is sending her up to Jang. Before being shot and murdered, Richard was attempting to be encouraging when Lucy looked out the window and saw him smiling. Lucy is compelled to ascend with a bunch of goons when they forcefully exit the elevator. This scenario is set against a video of a cheetah hunting, attacking, and carrying the dead gazelle between its jaws. They deliver Lucy to Jang's residence. Lucy starts to throw up because there are bloody bodies on the ground. Jang emerges from the room with bloody hands. He makes a phone call to a guy to interpret for Lucy. She sobs, unsure of what is happening or why it is occurring. The code to unlock the suitcase is written by Jang on a piece of paper in the form of numerals. While his soldiers are preparing themselves with weapons and shields, Jang enters the subsequent chamber. A briefcase with 4 packets of blue powdered stuff is opened by Lucy. A drugged up guy is brought in by Jang to snort some of the blue stuff. Before Jang shoots him in the head, the guy momentarily convulses and then breaks out in insane laughter. After that, Lucy is told to do a task but resists until she is spanked. In a hotel room, Lucy awakens. Her tummy is wrapped with a bandage. When Jang's men enter, they toss her some clothing. Along with 3 other males, she is brought to Jang. In order to explain to Lucy that she and the other guys had a substance called CPH4 inserted into their lower intestines, a British man known as the Limey enters the room. They want to transport the medication throughout the globe since it is considered to be the newest and greatest on the market. After being tied up, one of the thugs kicks Lucy in the stomach where they cut into her before bringing her inside a room. As a result, the medication bag tears, letting the powder into Lucy's body. She starts to wriggle and flail about the room, reaching even for the ceiling before falling back to the ground. Throughout this, Professor Samuel Norman is shown lecturing a school on his studies on the potential of the brain. He basically discusses what may occur if people were to utilize more of their brains than the recommended 10% of their brain capacity, as well as how the brain would react in different settings that might enable it to succumb to immortality or reproduction. What would happen if humans reached 100%? A student queries Norman. He claims he doesn't know. Lucy regains consciousness, her eyes flashing a brilliant blue. She is more at ease than previously as she sits erect. When a thug enters the room, Lucy stretches her legs out to entice him. The criminal grinned and placed his weapon on the table. Lucy grabs his belt as he approaches her and turns him over before moving the table to retrieve the revolver. She shoots the other thugs as they are eating after she has freed herself. She is wounded in the shoulder but manages to remove the bullet painlessly. She then devours the food left behind by the goons before departing. Outside, she encounters 2 guys, and she convinces one of them to drive her to the hospital. Lucy can hear sounds coming from outside the vehicle as she travels to the hospital. When she arrives at the hospital, she can see the signs as clearly as if they were written in English for her. When she enters the operating room, a guy is being treated by the medical staff. Informing the physicians that they would not have been able to rescue him since the tumor in his brain had already progressed too far, Lucy glances over the patient's X-ray pictures before shooting him. She coerces the medical staff into removing the bag from her tummy. She then calls her mother to explain that she is able to access the most intimate parts of her memories, including being sick as a child or even petting a cat when she was just a year old. She feels everything, including the air, the blood flowing through her veins, the heat leaving her body, and even the air. Before hanging up, she declares her love for her mother. When the doctor removes the bag of medications from Lucy's stomach, she informs him that it is CPH4, and he tells her that he is shocked Lucy has lived this long with it in her body since pregnant women manufacture this substance 6 weeks into their pregnancy as nutrition for the baby. Jang is now getting a tattoo and a facial, so Lucy takes one more stop before returning to the hotel to locate him. Before stabbing both of Jang's hands, she dispatches his guards and drives the tattoo artist away. She connects to his brain using her newly discovered abilities and uses pictures from their travel tickets to deduce the destinations of the other 3 drug mules. Jang screams in agony as she departs. As Lucy travels through the airport, she alters the color and style of her hair since it has been widely known that she shot the patient. She contacts Captain Pierre Del Rio, Amerwait, a French police officer, to let him know about the additional drug mules. She then gets on the airplane and continues her studies on the brain while typing quickly on her laptop. Lucy requests a glass of champagne when the flight attendants urge her to switch off her computer. She also tells one of the flight attendants to clean her nose without turning around, which causes the other passenger's nose to bleed. The champagne glass is handed to Lucy, who raises it to wisdom. She takes a drink, and a 40% lights on the screen. She spits out 3 additional teeth after finding a tooth in her drink. Then, in full front of the passengers and flight attendants, her skin begins to deteriorate. When Lucy enters the restroom, her face starts to melt and her fingers start to vanish. She takes out the remaining CPH4 and inhales it to return to normalcy, but she faints. After they have captured the other mules, Lucy awakens in a hospital room where Del Rio and a few other cops and medics are waiting. She immediately sits up, alarming the nurse. When Lucy exits the room, armed men are waiting for her. With the exception of Del Rio, she can put them all to sleep with a wave of her fingertips. In the meanwhile, G, one of Jang's goons, enters the area with other armed men to locate the other mules. After murdering them, they take them into a room and cut the narcotics out of them. Together, they track down Jang's men. With her brain capacity now at 60%, she maneuvers them around the hallway and constructs an invisible wall to stop G from fleeing with the suitcase containing the pills. She takes G's medicines and turns to go, but she instructs Del Rio to follow. He believes he is useless to her, but she approaches and gives him a kiss while inviting him to be there as a reminder. By commandeering Del Rio's automobile and swerving erratically around the streets while saying she has never driven before, Lucy utilizes her talents to locate a new place. G and Jang adhere to her. In a university, where Lucy and Del Rio find Norman and his colleagues, she starts to reveal all she has learned about how much smarter she is now than the average person. While everything is going on, Jang and his men sneak into the area and begin firing. Lucy provides the academics the remaining CPH4 so they may create a liquid substance that enters her circulation. Her hands begin to change into a black, wormy type of goo that hooks itself to the computers in the room, giving Lucy more energy from matter and giving her an amazing amount of power. Her brain function drops to 70% and her hands begin to change into this goo. She manipulates matter in a manner that appears to wipe everything in the room, leaving the academics standing in a blank void before constructing some kind of new age supercomputer right in front of their eyes as her brain function continues to advance. He tells G to take action as he watches from outside as the cops shoot down Jang's guys. Lucy is sent hundreds of kilometers to Times Square as G fires a rocket launcher through the room. With a sweep of her hand, she can alter time. She goes back in time to see the chimpanzee from the opening scene, traveling from early 20th century New York through colonial days and even to ancient times. They make contact with their fingertips, propelling Lucy across the universe, all of space, and all of time, giving her limitless power. After carefully approaching Lucy's head with his rifle, Jang enters the room. She eventually achieves 100%. Her clothing are left behind when her body vanishes. Jang shoots nothing with his pistol. Del Rio enters and kills Jang with a shot. The room's dark matter vanishes and transforms into a flash drive that falls into Norman's hands, extending and concluding his investigation. Del Rio inquires about Lucy. His phone displays a message that reads, "I am everywhere." With Lucy's voiceover stating that this is what can be done with life, the movie ends with an aerial picture of Jang's body. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you like any part of this video, give a like. And for upcoming videos, please subscribe.